The crimson dunes of Zybar 7 stretched endlessly under the merciless twin suns. Even through her environmental suit's cooling system, Mei Han could feel the scorching heat pressing against her skin. Sweat trickled down her spine as she adjusted the settings on her atmospheric analyzer. The device beeped, displaying readings that made her frown. "Another day in paradise," she muttered to herself, squinting at the horizon where acid storms gathered like bruised clouds. As a biosphere engineer, assigned to the Purple Mountain base, Mei had grown accustomed to the harsh conditions of this desolate planet. But familiarity didn't make the place any less dangerous. The year was 2436 CE, and humanity had spread across the galaxy, forming alliances with some species while designating others as threats. At the top of the danger classification were the Zavraxi, intelligent predators known for their unmatched strength, speed, and tactical intelligence. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, earning the moniker Kings of the Hunt. Purple Mountain Base was little more than a collection of hastily constructed survival modules, power lines, and recycling systems that housed approximately 300 personnel. The base existed primarily to extract valuable minerals from Zybar 7's treacherous landscape. Life here was a constant struggle against equipment failures, acid storms, and the ever-present risk of dehydration. At 24, Mei had already earned a reputation as one of the most innovative engineers on the base. Her modifications to the water filtration systems had increased efficiency by 30%, potentially saving lives during the next severe storm season. Yet, despite her technical prowess, she remained somewhat of an outsider. While others bonded over shared hardships, Mei kept to herself, skeptical of human connections in an environment where survival often trumped compassion. Today's survey mission had taken her farther from the base than usual, to the very edge of their claimed territory. The Ingura Corporation, which funded the base, had detected anomalous energy readings in this sector and tasked Mei with investigating. What they hadn't told her was how far the anomaly was, nearly 15 kilometers beyond the safe zone. As she crested yet another rust-colored dune, her breath caught in her throat. There, sprawled across the red sands, lay an enormous creature unlike anything she had ever seen. Its body resembled a cross between a hyena and a dragon, covered in black scales that occasionally pulsed with a deep crimson light. The creature was at least 12 meters long, with a powerful tail and massive, folded wings that shimmered with an iridescent quality, even in its seemingly unconscious state. Around the fallen beast, the sand was scorched and littered with destroyed equipment, remnants of what appeared to be automated defense drones. The scene told a story of a violent confrontation. Mei's heart hammered against her ribs as recognition dawned. This was no ordinary alien fauna. This was a Zavraxi, one of the most feared predators in the galaxy. Every instinct told her to run, to contact the base immediately. Galactic Alliance protocols were clear. Any Zavraxi sighting must be reported, and the creature eliminated if possible. But something stopped her. The creature's flanks rose and fell in labored, irregular intervals. Dark fluid, blood, she presumed, seeped from wounds along its side, wounds that appeared to have been caused by plasma weapons. The mighty predator was dying. Her scanner confirmed her visual assessment. The creature's life signs were failing. It would likely die within hours without intervention. Standard procedure dictated she should let nature take its course. The death of a Zavraxi would be celebrated, not mourned. One less threat to worry about. One less nightmare to haunt the dreams of colonists. Yet, Mei found herself reaching for her water purifier. Before she could second-guess her actions, she approached the fallen beast, moving slowly and carefully. Up close, the creature was even more magnificent and terrifying. Its scales weren't simply black. They contained depth, like looking into a starless void that occasionally flickered with inner fire. The Zavraxi's eyes remained closed, but a rumbling growl emanated from deep within its chest as she drew near. May froze, her heart skipping several beats as she waited for the creature to attack. When it didn't move, she inched closer again. "I must be insane," she whispered. Kneeling beside the massive head, the creature's jaws alone could snap her in half with minimal effort. With trembling hands, she extracted purified water from her pack and, using a small portable container, held it to what she assumed was the creature's mouth, a fearsome arrangement of razor-sharp teeth behind scaled lips. "Please don't wake up and eat me," she murmured as she carefully tipped the container. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, the creature's throat moved as it swallowed. Encouraged, May continued providing water until her container was empty. The beast made no move to attack, remaining in its half-conscious state. May checked her chronometer. She needed to return to base before her absence triggered an alert. Looking at the wounded Zavraxi once more, she made a decision that would change her life, and potentially the future of interspecies relations. "I'll come back," she promised the unconscious creature. "Try not to die before then." The journey back to Purple Mountain Base was a blur, as May's mind raced with implications of what she had done and what she planned to do. Helping a Zavraxi was tantamount to treason in the eyes of many. These creatures had destroyed entire settlements, killed countless humans and allied species. They were classified as "avoid engagement at all costs" in the Galactic Alliance Handbook. Yet she couldn't shake the image of the wounded predator from her mind. There was something almost noble about the creature, even in its injured state. Back at the base, May went through her routine debriefing, carefully omitting any mention of the Zavraxi. Instead, she reported minor anomalies in the soil composition that would justify her return to the area. That night, she slept fitfully, dreams filled with gleaming black scales and crimson eyes. By morning, she had made her decision. She would continue to help the creature, at least until it could fend for itself. Over the next days, May established a pattern. She would complete her assigned tasks efficiently, then request additional survey time, which was readily granted, given her exemplary performance record. During these extended surveys, she would return to the wounded Zavraxi, bringing water and synthesized protein packs that she hoped would provide adequate nutrition. The creature remained mostly unconscious during her first few visits, accepting water and occasionally consuming small amounts of the protein mixture she offered. On her fifth visit, however, something changed. As May approached, the Zavraxi's eyes snapped open. Time seemed to stop as she found herself staring into eyes like burning coals, intelligent, intense, and unmistakably aware. The creature's pupils contracted as they focused on her, and May knew with absolute certainty that her life hung in the balance of whatever judgment the predator made in the next few seconds. She remained perfectly still, not even daring to breathe, as the Zavraxi assessed her. Its nostrils flared, taking in her scent. Then, to her astonishment, it made a sound unlike anything she had ever heard, a combination of a growl and something almost like wind passing through rock formations. It wasn't threatening, merely acknowledging. "Hello," May said softly, uncertain if the creature could understand her language, but feeling compelled to speak. "I've been bringing you water. My name is May." The Zavraxi continued to watch her with those burning eyes. Then, it slowly shifted its massive head, exposing its wounded side in what seemed like a deliberate action. Was it showing her its injury? Asking for help? Taking a tremendous risk? May moved closer and examined the wound. The plasma burn had created a deep gash that was struggling to heal. From her pack, she retrieved a medical regenerator, a device meant for human tissue repair that she had borrowed from the medical bay. She had no idea if it would work on Zavraxi physiology, but it was worth trying. "This might feel strange," she warned, activating the device. The regenerator hummed as she carefully directed it over the wound. The Zavraxi tensed but didn't attack. Instead, it made that strange sound again, watching her with what May could only interpret as curiosity. After about 20 minutes, she deactivated the regenerator. The wound looked marginally better. Not healed, but perhaps the beginnings of recovery. The creature flexed its muscles near the injured area, seemingly testing the sensation. "I'll call you Arak," May decided suddenly. "You need a name if we're going to be friends." The word friends hung in the air between them. Absurd, given their respective species' history. Yet, something about this interaction felt significant, like the beginning of something unprecedented. As if in response to her naming, the Zavraxi, Arak, made another sound. This one different from before. It was almost like an attempt at speech, a rumbling that shaped itself around unfamiliar vocal patterns. "Mayrock," came the growled approximation of her name, so unexpected that May nearly fell backward in shock. You can speak?" she gasped. Arak made no further attempt at human language, but continued watching her with those intelligent eyes. May realized she had stumbled upon something extraordinary, a Zavraxi capable of mimicking human speech, at least to some degree. This wasn't just a predator. This was a sentient being with capabilities beyond what humans had documented. As the days passed, May's clandestine visits to Arak became the center of her existence. The Zavraxi recovered slowly, but steadily, gradually regaining strength. Their communication evolved as well, a combination of simple words, gestures, and what May began to recognize as a sophisticated body language. During one visit, May brought an old datapad containing historical records about Zavraxi encounters. Most of the information was classified as restricted, but as a senior engineer, she had access to various databases for research purposes. What she discovered was troubling. 500 years ago, the Galactic Alliance had engaged in systematic operations against the Zavraxi, nearly wiping out their population. The official reason was self-defense. The Zavraxi were designated as too dangerous to coexist with. But deeper in the archives, May found hints that some Alliance factions had attempted to weaponize Zavraxi, using them as living weapons of mass destruction before turning against them when control proved impossible. "Is this true?" she asked Arak one evening, showing the creature images from the historical records. "Did humans try to use your people as weapons?" Arak's reaction was immediate and visceral, a low, menacing growl that made the ground beneath them vibrate. The scales along its spine flared, emitting heat and dark smoke that smelled of ozone and something alien. May instinctively backed away, suddenly reminded of just how dangerous her friend truly was. But then, Arak calmed, the flaring scales settling back against its body. Using their developing communication system, the Zavraxi conveyed a concept that May struggled to fully grasp, something about honor, protection, and a sacred oath. "Debt bond," Arak growled, the word clearly important though unfamiliar to May. Through gestures and primitive drawings scratched into the sand, Arak explained a fundamental aspect of Zavraxi culture, the protection oath. When a Zavraxi's life was saved, particularly in the harsh condition of an acid desert, the saved one became bound to their savior as honor kin. This bond was sacred, requiring the Zavraxi to protect their honor kin even at the cost of their own life. "So you're bound to protect me now?" May asked, trying to understand. Arak confirmed with a gesture that May had come to recognize as affirmation. The revelation was staggering. She had inadvertently activated an ancient cultural protocol that now linked her fate with that of the galaxy's most feared predator. Before she could fully process this information, her communicator buzzed with an urgent message from the base. New orders had arrived. Ingura Corporation had detected valuable plasium deposits in the exact area where Arak was recovering. They were sending a heavily armed expedition to secure the site and establish mining operations. Operations that would begin with clearing any hostile fauna from the region. May's blood ran cold. They were coming for Iraq. The message went on to detail the arrival of Captain Min of the Black Banner, commanding a unit of heavily armed mercenaries specializing in hostile fauna elimination. Their dropships would arrive in 3 days. "We need to move you," May told Iraq urgently. "They're coming with weapons designed to kill creatures like you." Arak's response surprised her. Instead of fear or aggression, the Zavraxi displayed what May could only interpret as resigned determination. Through their improvised communication, Arak conveyed that it was still too weak to travel far. Its wounds had improved, but full recovery, especially the ability to fly, remained weeks away. May faced an impossible choice: report Arak's existence as regulations demanded, or commit fully to protecting the creature, effectively betraying her employers and potentially endangering her colleagues. That night, back at the base, May made a decision. She would need allies. Carefully. She approached the 2 people she trusted most, Arjun Patel and Lana Kim, fellow biosphere engineers who had occasionally covered for her unexplained absences. "I need to show you something," she told them during their shared meal period. "But what I'm about to reveal could get us all in serious trouble." Their curiosity piqued. They agreed to accompany her on the next day's survey mission. When they finally crested the dune and saw Arak basking in the crimson sunlight, their reactions were predictably extreme. Arjun nearly fled in terror, while Lana reached for her sidearm. May quickly positioned herself between them and the Zavraxi. "Wait, please, it's not what you think," she pleaded. Over the next hour, May explained everything, finding Arak wounded, the gradual development of trust, and the revelation about the protection oath. To demonstrate, she approached Arak, who acknowledged her with the now familiar rumbling approximation of her name. "Mayrak," the creature greeted, causing both Arjun and Lana to stare in disbelief. "It can talk?" Lana whispered. "A little," May confirmed. "And understand quite a bit more. Arak isn't just a mindless predator. The Zavraxi have culture, traditions, language. They're as sentient as we are." Gradually, Arjun and Lana's fear gave way to cautious fascination. By the end of the visit, they had agreed to help May protect Arak, at least until they could figure out a more permanent solution. Their assistance proved invaluable. Arjun, with his expertise in planetary geology, identified a cave system that could serve as a better hiding place for Arak, one that wouldn't appear on standard scans due to natural mineral interference. Lana, who had connections in the base's security division, managed to accidentally corrupt certain surveillance data that might have revealed May's activities. 2 days later, they had successfully relocated Arak to the cave system, just hours before the Angura forces arrived. From a safe distance, May watched as the dropships descended, disgorging heavily armed personnel and mobile fortifications. The operation was clearly larger than a standard mining setup. This was a military-grade expedition. That evening, during a mandatory briefing for all base personnel, May finally came face-to-face with the leaders of the Angura expedition. Director Doran Thang, a sharp-featured man with cold eyes, outlined the company's plans for exploiting the newly discovered plasium deposits. What he didn't mention, but May immediately understood, was that the operation's scale indicated they knew more than they were admitting. Beside Director Thang stood a more contemplative figure, Security Chief Malik Vin, whose furrowed brow suggested internal conflict. When he spoke about eliminating potential threats, his eyes briefly met May's, and she sensed he might not be entirely committed to Angura's aggressive approach. The third leader introduced himself as Captain Hak Kai Min of the Black Banner mercenary unit. His reputation preceded him, a ruthless hunter who specialized in taking down the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. His presence confirmed May's worst fears. Somehow, Ingura had detected Arak's presence. After the briefing, May hurriedly conferred with Arjun and Lana in her quarters. "They know," she said, pacing anxiously. "Not specifically about Arak, perhaps, but they suspect a Zavraxi is in the region. Why else bring someone like Captain Min?" "We need more help," Lana concluded. "Professional help." She revealed that a Galactic Alliance inspector, named Aurelia Shin, was scheduled to arrive within days to oversee the compliance of Ingura's operation with Alliance regulations. Inspector Shin was known for her strict adherence to the law, but also for her fairness. "If we can convince her that Arak isn't a threat, that the Zavraxi aren't what we've been led to believe, she might intervene," Lana suggested. It was a gamble, but they had few options. For the next 2 days, May continued her routine while covertly monitoring the Ingura expedition's progress. They had established a forward base dubbed Sun Chasm, near the original location where she had found Arak. Their scanning equipment and patrol patterns suggested they were methodically searching the area. Meanwhile, Arak was growing stronger each day. The Zavraxi had begun limited movement outside the cave during nighttime hours, stretching its wings and testing its recovering strength. Through their improving communication, May learned more about Zavraxi society, a complex honor-based culture with intricate traditions around protection, territory, and family bonds. When Inspector Aurelia Shin finally arrived, May engineered an accidental meeting in the base's hydroponic garden, a neutral space where they could speak without arousing suspicion. "Inspector Shin," May greeted the tall, austere woman who radiated authority. "I'm Engineer May Han. I was hoping for a moment of your time regarding some ecological concerns about the new mining operation." Shin regarded her with shrewd eyes. "Concerns specific enough to arrange this chance encounter. Engineer Han?" May swallowed hard. The inspector was sharper than she had anticipated. "Yes, but not ones I can discuss openly. Would you be willing to accompany me on a survey tomorrow? There's something you need to see firsthand." "Against all expectations," Shin agreed, though her expression made it clear she suspected May's motives were more complicated than stated. The next day, May led Inspector Shin, along with Arjun and Lana, to the cave system where Arak had been hiding. Throughout the journey, Shin remained alert and increasingly suspicious, especially when they diverted from their filed flight plan. "This constitutes a breach of protocol. Engineer Han," she warned, as they landed their survey vehicle far from any official survey sites. "I understand," May acknowledged, "but what I'm about to show you justifies it. Please keep an open mind." As they approached the cave entrance, May called out to Arak in the vocalizations she had learned. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, a low rumble emerged from the darkness, and Arak's massive form appeared at the cave mouth. Inspector Shin immediately drew her weapon, her face pale with shock. "A Zavraxi! You've been harboring a Class Alpha predator?" "Please, don't shoot," May pleaded, stepping between Shin and Arak. "It's not what you think. Arak isn't a threat. At least, not to us." Over the next hour, as the twin suns climbed higher in the sky, May explained everything, finding Arak wounded, the developing communication, the protection oath, and her suspicions about historical misrepresentations of the Zavraxi. To her credit, Inspector Shin listened, though her weapon remained ready. The turning point came when Arak, seemingly understanding the gravity of the situation, slowly approached and performed what May had come to recognize as a formal greeting, a display involving luminescent patterns across its scales that signified respect. "My Rakkin," Arak rumbled, the words clearer than ever before. Then, gesturing toward Shin, added a questioning sound. "This is Inspector Shin," May explained to Arak. "She might be able to help us." Shin watched the exchange with widening eyes. "It's actually communicating," she murmured. This contradicts everything in our databases. Because your databases are incomplete, came a new voice. Everyone turned to see Security Chief Malik Vin standing at the edge of the clearing, a scanner in his hand, but, notably, no weapon drawn. "Chief Vin," May gasped. "How did you—" "Find you? I've been monitoring unusual movement patterns for days," he explained, approaching cautiously while keeping a respectful distance from Iraq. "I suspected you were hiding something. Engineer Han. I didn't expect this." Vin turned to Inspector Shin. "What Engineer Han doesn't know is that there are factions within Ngura that have been searching for a live Zavraxi for years. Not to eliminate it, to capture it. Director Thang intends to revive the weapons program that was officially abandoned centuries ago." "You're betraying your employer," Shin observed. Vin's expression hardened. "I'm preventing a catastrophic error. The historical records were sanitized. Inspector, the original weaponization program didn't fail because Zavraxi were uncontrollable. It failed because they refused to attack innocent populations. They have a moral code that the program directors couldn't override." This revelation aligned with what Iraq had been trying to communicate to May. The Zavraxi weren't mindless killers. They were warriors with a strict honor code that included protection of those they considered kin and refusal to harm the innocent. The impromptu council continued for hours, with Vin providing insider information about Ngura's true intentions. Shin sharing what she knew of Alliance protocols regarding sentient species, and May translating Iraq's increasingly complex contributions. By day's end, an unlikely alliance had formed, one dedicated to protecting Iraq and exposing the truth about Zavraxi. Their plan was simple in concept, but dangerous in execution. They would document Iraq's intelligence and peaceful intentions, then use Alliance regulations on sentient species protection to halt Ngura's operation. Inspector Shin would file official reports, while Vin would covertly delay the hunting expedition. What they hadn't counted on was Captain Min's impatience. The mercenary commander, frustrated by the lack of progress and suspicious of Vin's apparent foot-dragging, decided to take matters into his own hands. The attack came at dawn. May was awoken by an urgent communication from Vin. "They're moving on the cave system." Min convinced Thang that waiting was allowing the target to recover strength. "They're deploying now with full weaponry." By the time May and her allies reached the site, the confrontation had already begun. Captain Min's forces had surrounded the cave entrance, weapons trained on the darkness within. Director Thang observed from a hovering command platform, his face set in grim determination. "Come out, beast," Min called into the cave. "Face your end with dignity." The response was not what anyone expected. Iraq emerged not with aggression, but with controlled power. The Zavraxi's scales glowed, with patterns that May recognized as formal communication displays. It stood tall, wings partially extended, but not threatening, making its impressive size clear while avoiding overtly aggressive postures. Then, to the astonishment of the assembled forces, Iraq spoke. "Not beast." The Zavraxi rumbled in stilted, but understandable human language. "Zavraxi, sentinel, honor-bound." The mercenaries faltered, weapons wavering as they processed the fact that their target was speaking to them. Director Thang's expression contorted with rage. "It's a trick," he shouted. "Some kind of mimicry. Open fire!" The first volley of energy weapons struck Iraq's scales, creating flashes of light, but seemingly doing little damage. The Zavraxi's natural armor, designed to withstand the harsh environments of dozens of worlds, absorbed much of the impact. In response, Iraq's demeanor changed. The ceremonial displays vanished, replaced by the combat stance of a warrior. Its scales darkened to absorb energy, wings unfurled to their full impressive span, and a low, threatening growl emanated from deep within its chest. May watched in horror as the situation spiraled toward violence. She needed to intervene, to prevent the very confrontation she had been trying to avoid. "Stop!" she shouted, running toward the standoff with Inspector Shin and Chief Vin close behind. "This doesn't need to happen!" Captain Min swiveled to face her, his weapon tracking her movement. "Stand down, engineer! This creature is a threat to the entire operation." "Arak is sentient and protected under Alliance law," Inspector Shin declared, activating her official credentials, which projected her authority status for all to see. "I am ordering an immediate cessation of hostilities." Director Thang's laugh was cold. "Your jurisdiction is limited, Inspector. This operation has special clearance from sectors of the Alliance you don't have access to." The standoff intensified as May positioned herself between the mercenaries and Arak. She could feel the heat radiating from the Zavraxi's body, could sense its readiness to attack if necessary. But she also understood something the others didn't. Arak would not strike first. The honor code wouldn't allow it. "Director Thang," she called out, "you don't understand what you're dealing with. The Zavraxi aren't just powerful predators. They're a civilization with culture, language, and ethics. Arak hasn't harmed anyone at our base despite having the opportunity. That alone should tell you something." Thang's expression remained unmoved. "Your naivety is touching, Engineer Han, but misplaced. Captain Min, remove her from the field." As Min advanced toward May, Arak's patience ended. With a speed that belied its massive size, the Zavraxi leaped over May and landed between her and the approaching mercenary. The ground shook with the impact as Arak released a roar that reverberated through the canyon walls, a sound of pure protective fury. What followed was chaos. The mercenaries opened fire with everything they had, filling the air with energy bolts and projectiles. Arak moved with astonishing grace, its massive form somehow evading the worst of the barrage, while its scales deflected much of what did connect. It didn't attack indiscriminately. However, the Zavraxi targeted weapons and equipment rather than personnel, disabling rather than killing when possible. May and her allies took cover behind rock formations, watching as Arak systematically dismantled the military force. When a mercenary fired a heavy plasma cannon, Arak's response was immediate, a burst of concentrated flame from its mouth that melted the weapon and forced the wielder to abandon it. "It's controlling its attacks," Vin observed with professional appreciation, "minimizing casualties while maximizing tactical advantage." Director Thang, seeing his forces faltering, made a desperate decision. He aimed his personal weapon, a high-powered energy pistol, directly at May. "Stop or I end her!" he shouted. Arak froze, burning eyes fixed on the weapon pointed at May. The Zavraxi's scales pulsed with patterns that conveyed intense emotion, rage mixed with protective determination. In that suspended moment, May realized the full implications of the protection oath. Arak wasn't just fighting to defend itself. It was fighting to honor a sacred bond. The Zavraxi's entire cultural identity was wrapped up in this moment. Thang's finger tightened on the trigger. Time seemed to slow as May watched the energy pistol begin to glow with building power. The shot never came. With blinding speed, Arak projected a concentrated burst of plasma that severed the connection between the pistol's power source and firing mechanism. The weapon sputtered and died in Thang's hand. Before the director could react, Arak was upon him, not attacking, but looming with undeniable presence. The message was clear. The Zavraxi could have killed him, but chose not to. In the silence that followed, Inspector Shin stepped forward, her authority reasserted. "Director Doran Thang, you are under arrest for attempted murder, violation of sentient species protection laws, and conspiracy to develop illegal weapons of mass destruction." The remaining mercenaries, seeing their employer detained and their captain incapacitated, surrendered without further resistance. As Alliance peacekeepers arrived to secure the scene, May approached Arak, who had withdrawn to a respectful distance once the threat was neutralized. "Thank you," she said simply, placing a hand on the Zavraxi's scaled flank. The surface was warm, but not burning, vibrating slightly with the creature's powerful life force. "Protect! Mayrak kin," Arak responded, the words becoming clearer with each attempt at human speech. Honor-bound. In the aftermath of what would later be called the Sun Chasm incident, everything changed. Ingura Corporation faced serious legal consequences for their attempted weapons program. Director Thang and several high-ranking officials were arrested, while Security Chief Vin received immunity in exchange for his testimony about the corporation's illegal activities. More significantly, the incident triggered a re-evaluation of humanity's understanding of the Zavraxi. Inspector Shin's detailed report, combined with extensive documentation of Arak's intelligence and communication abilities, forced the Galactic Alliance to acknowledge that they had been operating under flawed assumptions for centuries. Over the following months, Purple Mountain Base transformed. With Ingura's influence removed, the base was redesigned under Joint Alliance Zavraxi oversight. The mining operation continued, but with sustainable practices and proper respect for the planet's ecology. Arak, fully recovered from its injuries, became a regular sight around the base. Initially, the other personnel were terrified, but gradually, as they witnessed the Zavraxi's controlled behavior and protective presence, fear gave way to cautious acceptance and eventually to appreciation. When an acid storm of unprecedented severity struck the region, it was Arak who flew through the corrosive winds to rescue stranded survey teams, cementing its status as a guardian rather than a threat. May established what came to be known as the Protection Network, an integrated defense system that allowed Arak to respond quickly to any dangers threatening the base. Engineers modified communication systems to better accommodate Zavraxi vocalizations, while Arak continued improving its grasp of human language. Purple Mountain Base was officially renamed Arak's Haven, symbolizing the new relationship between humans and Zavraxi. The installation became a diplomatic outpost, the first of its kind where the two species could interact peacefully. 3 months after the confrontation at Sun Chasm, a formal diplomatic mission arrived from the Zavraxi homeworld. Ambassador Tyson Cole, a close advisor to the Zavraxi sovereign, came to establish official relations with the Galactic Alliance. To everyone's surprise, the ambassador specifically requested May's presence during the negotiations. "You are honored among our kind," Ambassador Cole explained through a translation device. "The one who saved our Sentinel has proven what some of us have long believed, that humans and Zavraxi can find common ground. The protection oath that binds Arak to you is now extended to this place and its people." The agreement that followed established a framework for peaceful coexistence and cultural exchange. The Zavraxi, it turned out, possessed knowledge and perspectives that complemented human understanding in numerous fields, from astrophysics to philosophy. What had begun as an act of compassion toward a dying creature had blossomed into an interspecies alliance with far-reaching implications. As for May, she was appointed as the sole envoy, the primary diplomatic link between humans and Zavraxi. Her unique bond with Arak gave her insights no other human possessed, making her invaluable to the developing relationship between the species. One evening, as the crimson sun set over the transformed landscape of Zybar 7, May stood at the observation deck of Arak's Haven. Beside her, the massive form of her Zavraxi guardian cast a long shadow across the metal plating. In the distance, Plasium extraction proceeded under the watchful eyes of both human and Zavraxi supervisors, while new residential modules rose to accommodate the growing diplomatic community. "Did you ever imagine this?" May asked, gesturing toward the bustling activity below. "When I found you dying in the desert, did you think we'd end up here?" Arak's scales shimmered with thoughtful patterns. "Fate. Unexpected," the Zavraxi rumbled, its command of human language improving daily. "Water offered. changed galaxy. May smiled, reflecting on the simple act that had altered the course of history. A lone engineer offering water to a dying predator. In that moment of compassion, she had unwittingly challenged centuries of fear and misunderstanding, proving that even the most entrenched perceptions could be transformed. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, May knew that her journey with Iraq was just beginning. Together, they represented something powerful, a testament to the unexpected connections that could form across the seemingly unbridgeable gulfs separating different worlds and different species. In a galaxy filled with wonders and terrors, perhaps the most remarkable discovery was that kindness could transcend evolutionary boundaries, creating bonds stronger than steel and more enduring than hatred. The oath that bound Arak to May had expanded to encompass two civilizations, offering a path forward that neither could have found alone. And it had all begun with a single act of mercy, water offered to a dying beast beneath an alien sky.